Welcome to Horror Needs a Hero, Episode 3. I have been so excited because we're going to be talking about the big three, Michael, Freddy, Jason. We're going to be talking about why these guys are so awesome. We're going to look into each series, we're going to discuss some of the not so great episodes, but then I'm going to give you my top 5. I'm going to take all 3 franchises and I'm going to pick 5 movies out of all those films and give you my top 5. Now, in a perfect world, because I'm such a Halloween fan, it would be front-loaded with Halloween movies, but I'm going to be fair about this. I'm going to actually look at the movies from a critical standpoint. I'm going to tell you what I think are the actual better movies out of these 3 franchises. And we're also going to be talking about why these guys are so awesome, why Michael is the personification of evil, why nobody wants to go camping because they're afraid that Jason might stalk them in the night. Why nobody wants to go to sleep because of Freddy and how creepy he is and how no one is safe from their dreams. These are 3 iconic characters and there is a reason why they have that icon status in the horror community. So without further ado, let's get it going. Guys, this is gonna be a long video, so before you watch this, go grab you a drink. I got my Monster here, it gives me my energy I need. I'm gonna pop this open. Get your popcorn, set it in front of you, put your feet up, and let's sit back and let's just reminisce about these 3 icons and how awesome they are. And after you watch this video, I guarantee you're gonna wanna throw at least one of the movies from each of these franchises into your DVD or Blu-ray player. Okay, now we're gonna talk about each character. And I'm gonna tell you what I like about each character. I might talk about some of the movies that I like. And then I'm also gonna talk about the worst movie in each franchise. And we're gonna start it with Freddy.
I know who's trying to kill you. He wears a dirty brown hat. He's horribly burned. He has razors on his right hand. His name is Freddy Krueger. He was a child murderer before he died. And after he died, well, he became something worse. 6 years ago, he killed my friends. He almost killed me.
Why is he after us?
Yeah, and what did we do? It's not you. Your parents, my parents, they burned him alive. And now we're paying for their sins. You are the last of the Elm Street children.
I always thought Wes Craven, how he came up with that idea of Freddy, he got it from a true story, which I find amazing. That a kid was actually having all these nightmares, and I believe it was in the 40s or 50s, it was a boy. He did not want to go to sleep, and he was doing everything he could to not go to sleep. And then eventually he died. And that is just a creepy story in and of itself. And then Wes Craven took that and said, hey, let's make a movie out of this. And it actually took him quite a few years to get Nightmare made. But that first movie is so great. It is a horror masterpiece. It really is. But we'll get to that later. What I love about Freddy, though, is his look. Yeah, that story's great, but then you add on to that this killer that is completely different than Michael and Jason. He actually talks, and to have one of these guys talk, it is a risky proposition because it could come off as really campy, and we've seen that in some of the other horror franchises. I think Freddy might be the only one that can get away with it because of Robert Englund. Robert Englund is a great actor. He was a stage actor before he got the role in Nightmare on Elm Street. He proved that you had to have a great actor to be able to pull that off because they tried to not use him for, I believe, the second movie. They realized they have to pay this guy because he is Freddy. And I think it's a stroke of genius that Wes Craven gave him the red and green sweater and the burned face. I mean, everything about Freddy, even more than Michael and Jason, I'll even give him, is just a stroke of genius. And I think there are some really, really solid movies in that franchise, especially the first four. The first four are great. And this is an unpopular opinion, but I really like the remake, even though Robert Englund wasn't in it. But I love that whole evolution of Freddy too. I think that might have been one of the things that made the franchise so successful, because in the first two movies, he was really dark, he was sinister, he didn't really talk that much. And then starting in the third one, I think the third one had that perfect balance, because he was still really dark and creepy, but you started to see the playful side of Freddy really come out in the third movie. And I remember seeing Dream Warriors in the theater back in, I believe it came out in '87. And I just loved that movie. It is so great. And it's still a great movie. It is a little dated, I think. And I don't like the whole Wizard Master character in it. But overall, it's a great movie. And The Dream Master Part 4 is actually the highest grossing out of the franchise. It was just a huge smash hit when it came out. And it's not one of the better movies, but I thought Renny Harlin actually did a fantastic job in that movie though. He threw a bevy of different ideas, pretty much everything in the kitchen sink. And that's another thing that's so great about a Nightmare on Elm Street movies, is you really can go anywhere. Any death scene can go as far as your imagination will let it, because it is in a dream sequence. And there's a lot of fun to be had in that scenario. Now, as far as the worst Nightmare movie, to me, it's got to be 5 and 6. To be honest, I think I've only watched those movies maybe 1.5 times, because I couldn't get through them the second time. They're just that bad to me. The Dream Child and then Freddy's Dead. And if you got a movie where you're going to kill off Freddy, it should be a great movie, but it really wasn't at all. And I think this is just where Freddy got way too campy and way too over the top, and it pretty much became a parody of itself. It wasn't even funny. But I was glad that Wes Craven came back and gave the series New Nightmare, which I thought was a respectable close to the whole Robert Englund saga. But I hear that Robert Englund is actually coming back to play Freddy again, and I'm really curious to see how that one's going to go. Okay, next up, we're going to talk about my favorite killer of all time, Michael Myers.
I met him 15 years ago. I was told there was nothing left. No reason, no conscience, no understanding, and even the most rudimentary sense of life or death, of good or evil, right or wrong. I met this 6-year-old child with this blank, pale, emotionless face and the blackest eyes, the devil's eyes. I spent 8 years trying to reach him, and then another 7 trying to keep him locked up, because I realized that what was living behind that boy's eyes was purely and simply evil.
Guys, if you watch my channel, you know how much I love Halloween. I love that whole series. I love the story. I could talk all day about Halloween, but I'm just going to follow that formula. I'm going to tell you the key things that really just lock me into the Halloween series. First of all, the story. It is a really interesting story. If you remember from that clip that I just played for you, I remember the first time I really watched Halloween. I mean, when I was a kid, I watched it. I didn't really soak it in. When I was an adult and I actually paid attention to it, that scene with Dr. Loomis talking about who Michael Myers was as a child, that's what locked me in. That sent shivers down my spine, because the thought of a 6-year-old child just being the embodiment of evil, it was just creepy as hell. And I remember for years and years and years, I never realized that they actually do show Myers' face in the first Halloween. For years, I don't know what it was. It just didn't click with me. So I remember up until I think part 6, I had never really noticed his face. And that was another part of the mystery for me, not knowing what was behind that mask. And even in the first movie, when they do show him, it really made it creepy, because he was this blonde-haired, good-looking guy. And I think that's why John Carpenter did that. He wanted him to be angelic-looking, but his actual character be the antithesis of that. Also, the mask. To me, you couldn't pick a better mask for a psychopath than it's funny to say it, the William Shatner mask. They took the William Shatner mask, they painted it white, they teased up the hair, they took off the eyebrows. But it works, it's perfect. It sends shivers down your spine. Now, the mask does get off track later on in the franchise in some of the sequels. And I think using that William Shatner mask is kind of what got them into trouble, because they probably realized, hey, we're going to have to pay this guy if we keep using this mask again. So that's why they had to constantly change up the mask. I don't know why they couldn't have found one mask that was really awesome and then just stick with it. Monster break. Okay, the next thing that I love about Halloween is Loomis. Michael is such an important character, but Loomis is just as important as Michael. I believe that that's the reason why Myers is a member of the big three, an icon, because Loomis gives him weight. Loomis is always there to remind us in every movie that he's in, this is what you're dealing with. Just so you know, the guy that's running around killing everybody, let me tell you a little bit more about him, what went on when he was in the mental ward. In every movie, he gives a little bit more, and he really just shines on all those scenes. Like in part 5, when he was saying that he wanted to send him to hell, but he knew that hell would not have him. Every time he would say something like that, it would just scare the shit out of me. And it would remind me of why Myers was such an icon and why I was constantly just hooked on this series. And also, out of all three franchises, I think the Halloween franchise might have the most hills and valleys. CP from Will I Reviews, he stated this, and he couldn't be more right. You look at the Friday series, they're all front-loaded. The first 4 movies are the best, and for argument's sake, they get pretty bad starting with part 5. Same thing goes with Nightmare. I'd say the first 3, in my opinion, are really good movies, and then they falter up until New Nightmare comes along. Now, in my opinion, Halloween, the first 4 movies are great. 5, not so great. Definitely has some problems. Then 6, to me, is awesome. H2O, not my favorite, but it's considered one of the best in the franchise. Resurrection, horrible. Then you got Rob Zombie's movies, which are a complete mixed bag. I mean, they are so far out of left field, but they do have kind of a flair to them. I mean, Zombie has his fans, and I mean, some of those fans love Zombies Halloween 1 and 2, whereas I don't know too many people that really like Nightmare on Elm Street 5 and 6. They're universally bad movies, whereas Zombies movies, some people love them, some people hate them. And I think it's safe to say that most of the sequels in the Halloween franchise are debated. You have some people that love 6, and then you got some people that hate 6. Anytime I go on message boards, it seems like the Halloween message boards have the most insane fans, and they will fight tooth and nail for their said sequel that they love so much. Now, as far as the worst film in the Halloween franchise, to me that's Resurrection, and to just about everybody that's Resurrection. Resurrection is just a soulless, spineless piece of shit of a movie. It really is. And it's crazy to me that Rick Rosenthal, who directed Halloween 2, directed this movie. You know what? And I think part of the problem was once they killed off Jamie Lee Curtis's character, they really just had nowhere to go with the franchise. And once again, Michael Myers was not looking for a relative. He was just killing random teenagers that were in his house. He did that in the first one too, because when they did Halloween 1, the story wasn't written yet to where he had a sister. But Halloween 1 was directed by John Carpenter, had interesting characters, had great music. I mean, everything was great about the first movie. Resurrection had none of that. Okay, next we're gonna talk about Jason. There are so many people that love this character so much. Jason Voorhees. CP is a Jason guy. I have friends on Facebook, and they are just obsessed with Jason. Why is that? Here we go.
I don't want to scare anyone, but I'm going to give it to you straight about Jason. His body was never recovered from the lake after he drowned. The girl who survived that night at Camp Blood, that Friday the 13th, she claimed she saw him. She disappeared 2 months later. Legend has it that Jason saw his mother beheaded that night, and that he took his revenge. A revenge that he'll continue to seek if anyone ever enters his wilderness again. 5 years. 5 long years he's been dormant. And he's hungry. Jason's out there.
I think one reason why Jason is such a cool character is because of the evolution of Jason. Jason doesn't even really show up until the second movie, but he doesn't have the hockey mask. He has a sack head, but it worked. The sackhead Jason, to me, is almost my favorite version of Jason. I love Friday the 13th Part 2. Part of the reason is the way Jason was in that movie. He was very different. But with the iconic hockey mask, he still looks awesome as hell. And even in the bad movies, Jason has awesome kills. Jason always looks awesome in those movies too. And the next reason, I just said it, the kills. Out of all three icons, I think it's safe to say Jason has the best kills. In every movie, they come up with the coolest way to kill somebody. I think there's probably the bloodiest too, but they're just really inventive kills. I mean, you have one where a girl sticks her head in a car door, Jason takes the car door, slams her head. You don't see that in Michael movies. You don't see that in Freddy movies. Jason takes a girl's head, slams it in a cryogenic tub, slams it against the table. It's awesome. I could go on and on. I mean, the sleeping bag kill. The sleeping bag kill is one of the coolest kills ever. I remember when I first watched that, it just floored me. I was like, wow, he just picked up a girl in a sleeping bag, slammed her against a tree. And then finally, my favorite kill. The guy in the wheelchair. Jason takes a machete, slams it against his head, pushes him down the stairs. That's horrible. That's mean. And I think that is a big reason why people are obsessed with this franchise. It's just so creative. And also, I love the first four Friday the 13th movies, especially 1, 2, and 4. I think those are awesome. Now, as far as the worst film goes, this is a tough one for me because Friday the 13th has some really bad movies. I mean, you got Jason X, you got Jason Goes to Hell, you got Jason Takes Manhattan. Those are just bottom of the barrel shit fests. They're unwatchable. But if I had to pick one, I'd probably pick Jason Takes Manhattan because he's only in New York, I think, for like 5 minutes out of the whole movie. And for some reason, that is the most forgettable movie. I've probably watched it 3 or 4 times and I still can't remember hardly anything in it because it's just so stupid. It feels like a direct-to-TV movie. It really does. And I would say at least with Jason Goes to Hell, they were really trying to mix it up. But the big mistake in that one was Jason's not in the movie hardly at all. They pretty much did another version of a movie called The Hidden. And I read that the director didn't even know about The Hidden when he did Jason Goes to Hell, but they're pretty similar movies about an entity that goes from body to body. Okay, now it is top 5 time. So between these 3 franchises, we have around almost 30 movies. To pick a top 5 out of 30 movies, it's tough. My answer today might be different than my answer next week. This was not an easy task, but I tried to pick, at least 2 movies out of each franchise that I thought were great. So I'm gonna start you off with an honorable mention, and that's gonna be A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3. And I talked earlier about what I thought was so great about Part 3, how they found a perfect balance with Freddy, and also Frank Darabont, who directed The Shawshank Redemption, actually wrote the script for A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3. And it's really just a great story. It's really cool how they took all these kids in this mental ward. They were Elm Street victims and they decided to stand up and take down Freddy. And I remember just having so much fun with this movie. And I had to mention it for this list. So I know I'm cheating a little bit, but so be it. So anyway, number 5. Number 5 for me is Friday the 13th Part 2. This was the first movie that actually had Jason in the movie. But this movie actually has a moment that probably is the scariest moment out of the whole series, or it scared me the most, and that was the scene near the end of the movie when they take off Jason's burlap sack and then Jason jumps through the window. That was a very similar scene to the first movie when Jason comes out of the water, but I thought it was even more effective just because of how creepy Jason looked, because they didn't show what he looked like up until that moment, and it hit you just like that. So first we're gonna scare the shit out of you, but also you're gonna see what Jason looks like without the mask. So you had 2 different things working at the same time. And also I really like the characters in Friday the 13th Part 2, but I'm not gonna go too far into detail because I am gonna be doing a review for Part 2 coming up really soon, because as you all know, November has a Friday the 13th, and I will be reviewing Part 2 on Friday the 13th. Okay, my number 4 is Halloween 4. Halloween 4 was the movie that really just got me into the franchise, that made me obsessed with Michael Myers. And I thought it was a great movie. They went back to the basics. It was the first movie that brought Myers back into the franchise. A lot was riding on this movie, and luckily it turned out to be a great movie with a really nail-biting third act and a crazy ending. As a matter of fact, 4 was one of my most awesome theater experiences, because I just remember everybody was so into it. I was in a packed house. People were screaming. It was just awesome. And I love part 4, and I still watch it every year. Okay, number 3 is Friday the 13th part 4. I love this intro. This is my favorite Friday movie. I just love this movie so much because the characters seem much more interesting than any other Friday movie, because they had Crispin Glover in it, and Crispin Glover doing that dance that he does in the movie is the most out of left field moment in any horror movie. It is just so crazy. I could just watch it on a loop for 10 hours. It's great. But also, Ted White, I think, is the best Jason. I love him in this movie. If you go back and try to look at how many times they actually show him, they don't show Jason that much at all in this movie. They don't show his face until the end. Ted White was a scary Jason. I thought he did a great job. I mean, there was a lot of fun to be had in this movie with all the characters, but Jason himself was serious as hell. And I just thought that Ted White gave more life to Jason. He had an aspect of fear to him that the other Jasons didn't really have, especially after. I think Kane Hodder is a good Jason. Don't get me wrong, but I think Ted White is just so much better. Okay, number 2 is Nightmare on Elm Street Part 1. I'm sure this is no surprise to anybody. Nightmare on Elm Street Part 1 is a horror masterpiece. Wes Craven just created such a phenomenal movie. I love the characters, I love the music, I love Freddy in this. Everything just works perfectly. And it might have one of the best third acts out of all 3 franchises. That third act, when Nancy is setting up all those booby traps, you are on the edge of your seat because she is running from Freddy in the house. She has pulled him out of the dream world. That was just something new for us, you know, because the whole movie, we were in the dream world with Freddy. But once he comes out, we felt really, really scared for Nancy. And we wanted her to kill him. And I'm sure this is no surprise to anybody, but my number 1, of course, is John Carpenter's Halloween. John Carpenter's Halloween is my favorite movie of all time, so why wouldn't it be my number 1? I've talked about Halloween so many times. If you look at my previous videos, I think I always try to shoehorn in Halloween some way or another. I just love the way John Carpenter directed this movie. And I'm actually going to see Halloween on the big screen in a few days, this Thursday on the 29th. I'm gonna actually drive an hour away to Tallahassee, Florida, and it's gonna be my son's first time actually seeing a Halloween movie on the big screen. And I'm really looking forward to that. So guys, that is my top 5 out of the 3 franchises. Whew, monster break. Well guys, we did it. Horror Needs a Hero, episode 3. It's in the can. I've had so much fun talking about this, and this was CP's idea. This was not my idea. He was the one that said, hey, let's do an episode that's fun. Let's talk about the big 3, Michael, Freddy, Jason. Let's give our horror fans something special. And CP, thank you for bringing this idea to me. I'm so glad we did this. I had so much fun. Now I have a lot of editing to do. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. Subscribe to my channel, follow me on Facebook and Twitter, and Humdrum out.